Have you ever had a dream that seemed to predict a future event with uncanny accuracy? Perhaps you dreamed of someone you hadn't thought about in years, only to receive news of their passing the next day. Or maybe you dreamed of a specific place or situation, only to find yourself there weeks later, experiencing an overwhelming sense of déjà vu. If so, you're not alone. Throughout human history, people have reported dreams that appear to transcend the normal boundaries of time, dreams that reveal future events before they occur. Tonight, we continue our exploration of Jung's revolutionary psychology by venturing into one of its most mysterious territories, the phenomenon of prophetic dreams. Building on our previous discussions of the shadow, projection, the curse of consciousness, and the anima, we now turn to something that challenges our very understanding of reality itself. What I'm about to share might fundamentally alter how you think about time, consciousness, and the nature of your own mind. And by the end, you'll discover a profound revelation about your unconscious that may forever change how you understand dreams, intuition, and the boundaries of human awareness. When dreams predict death, stories from the edge of time. Let me begin with a story that Jung himself documented, one that exemplifies the mysterious phenomenon we're exploring tonight. A man came to Jung deeply troubled by a recurring dream he'd been having for several weeks. In this dream, he was driving along a coastal cliff road when his car veered off the edge, plunging toward the rocks below. Each time, he would awaken just before impact, shaken by how vivid and consistent the dream remained. Jung explored the symbolic dimensions of the dream with his patient, noting elements that seemed to reflect inner psychological tensions. He advised the man to pay attention to these symbolic aspects and to approach driving with extra caution. Despite these precautions, 3 weeks later, the man was killed when his car went off a cliff road in precisely the manner his dream had depicted. This is far from an isolated case. Throughout his clinical practice, Jung collected numerous accounts of dreams that appeared to foretell future events with remarkable specificity, particularly dreams concerning death. Consider the case of Abraham Lincoln, who reportedly dreamed of his own assassination just days before it occurred. In his dream, Lincoln wandered through the White House, hearing sounds of weeping, until he encountered a corpse laid out in state. When he asked a guard who had died, the reply came, "The President." Or consider the well-documented case of 19 dreams collected by the British Society for Psychical Research, all from different individuals who dreamed of the Aberfan disaster, a catastrophic collapse of a coal waste tip that killed 116 Welsh school children before it happened. Some of these dreams occurred days before the event, with details matching the actual tragedy with uncanny precision. Mainstream psychology typically dismisses such accounts as coincidence, selective memory, or retrospective fabrication. But Jung took them seriously, recognizing patterns that couldn't be explained away by conventional theories of mind. What makes these prophetic dreams particularly compelling is their distinctive quality. Unlike ordinary dreams, which tend to feel fragmented and symbolic, dreams with apparent precognitive elements often have a distinctive clarity and emotional intensity. They create what Jung called a numinous impression, a sense of encountering something beyond ordinary experience that leaves a powerful psychological impact. People who experience such dreams frequently report that they feel different from regular dreams, more vivid, more coherent, and accompanied by a sense of significance that persists upon waking. It's as if some deeper part of the psyche is flagging the experience as important, demanding conscious attention. But how could dreams possibly reveal events that haven't yet occurred? Is precognition actually possible, or is something else happening? To answer these questions, we need to explore Jung's revolutionary understanding of the unconscious and its relationship to time. In our next section, we'll delve into Jung's concept of the collective unconscious, a dimension of mind that transcends individual experience and operates by different rules than ordinary consciousness. But first, consider this. Have you ever experienced a dream that seemed to predict a future event? What qualities made it different from your ordinary dreams? Beyond personal memory, the collective unconscious. To understand Jung's perspective on prophetic dreams, we must first grasp his revolutionary concept of the unconscious, which differs dramatically from the Freudian model still popular in mainstream thinking. For Freud, the unconscious was essentially a personal repository of repressed memories, desires, and impulses, a psychological basement where we store experiences too threatening to acknowledge consciously. In this model, dreams simply recycle personal material in disguised form. Jung recognized this personal unconscious, but discovered something far more vast beneath it, what he called the collective unconscious. This deeper layer of mind isn't formed from personal experience, but is inherited as part of our universal human psychological structure. It contains what Jung called archetypes, universal patterns and potentials that shape human experience across cultures and throughout history. Think of the collective unconscious as humanity's shared psychological inheritance, not memories of specific events, but innate patterns of perception and response that have evolved over countless generations. Just as your body inherits biological patterns for development, your psyche inherits psychological patterns that structure how you experience reality. This collective dimension operates by different rules than ordinary consciousness. It isn't constrained by individual identity. It processes information holistically rather than sequentially. And, most relevant to our exploration tonight, it appears to have a different relationship to time than our conscious mind does. In Synchronicity and a Causal Connecting Principle, Jung wrote, "The collective unconscious is a reservoir of psychic resources from the whole evolutionary and historical experience of mankind. It's not a figment of imagination. It's an objective reality." This collective dimension might help explain why prophetic dreams often involve events of collective significance rather than purely personal matters. The most compelling cases of apparent precognition typically involve tragedies, accidents, natural disasters, deaths, or other events with strong emotional impact beyond the individual. The Aberfan disaster dreams mentioned earlier exemplify this pattern. Why would multiple unconnected people dream about a school tragedy before it happened? Jung would suggest that events with profound collective impact may create ripples in the collective unconscious. Ripples that can sometimes be perceived before the events manifest in physical reality. But this still leaves us with a fundamental question. How could any part of the mind, collective or otherwise, access information about events that haven't yet occurred? To address this, we need to explore Jung's radical understanding of time itself, a perspective that challenges our conventional assumptions about past, present, and future. In our next section, we'll examine Jung's concept of the relativity of time, how time might appear linear to conscious awareness, but operate very differently in the deeper dimensions of the psyche. Before we continue, though, consider this question. Have you ever had experiences, dreams, intuitions, or synchronicities that seem to transcend ordinary time? What might these experiences suggest about the limitations of our conventional understanding of time? The relativity of time, Jung's radical perspective. In the unconscious, right time does not exist. With this simple but profound statement, Jung challenges our most fundamental assumptions about time and reality. For most of us, time appears self-evidently linear. The past is fixed, the present is fleeting, and the future remains open and undetermined. This chronological progression seems so obvious that we rarely question it. Yet Jung, influenced by both quantum physics and his clinical observations, proposed something far more radical, that this linear perception of time might be a limited function of consciousness, rather than an absolute truth about reality. In the unconscious mind, particularly at the collective level, time appears to operate very differently. Past, present, and future exist in a kind of eternal now, a state where events are connected by meaning and psychological significance rather than chronological sequence. Jung called this the relativity of time, a concept that parallels Einstein's physical theory of relativity. Just as Einstein showed that time is not an absolute, but depends on the observer's reference frame, Jung suggested that psychological time is relative to the level of consciousness experiencing it. To conscious awareness, with its evolutionary focus on survival in the physical world, linear time is a useful and necessary construct. But the deeper dimensions of the psyche, particularly the collective unconscious, appear to operate according to different principles. Think of how time works in dreams. In the dream state, you might experience what seems like hours or days within minutes of actual sleep time. Past memories and anticipated future events can intermingle freely. Events occur in patterns of meaningful connection rather than strict causality. This dream logic offers a glimpse into how the unconscious relates to time. Jung noted striking parallels between this understanding and the emerging physics of his era, as quantum mechanics revealed the strange behavior of particles at the subatomic level, where causality becomes probabilistic and observation changes outcomes. Jung saw confirmation that the absolute, deterministic worldview of classical physics was giving way to something more complex and interconnected. In Man and His Symbols, he wrote, "It might well be that psychic existence, being the subjective aspect of the universe, has neither space nor time, but operates in a realm where space and time do not exist, because they would no longer be required." This perspective suggests that what we call prophetic dreams might not involve seeing the future in a literal sense, but rather accessing a dimension of mind where time operates differently, where information about significant events might be available before those events manifest in physical reality. Jung collaborated with the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Wolfgang Pauli to explore these connections between physical and psychological reality, developing the concept of synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that couldn't be explained by conventional causality, but suggested a deeper ordering principle connecting psyche and matter. But if time operates differently in the unconscious, how specifically might this explain dreams that appear to predict future events? In the next section, we'll explore Jung's concept of prospective dreams and how the unconscious might process information in ways that appear predictive to conscious awareness. But first, consider this. How might your perspective on your own life change if you considered that your unconscious might exist in a dimension where past, present, and future are simultaneously available? Beyond prediction, the prospective function of dreams. Jung's most illuminating insight about apparently prophetic dreams isn't that they predict the future in a supernatural sense, but that they reveal how our unconscious processes information differently than our conscious mind does. He introduced the concept of the prospective function of dreams, the idea that dreams don't just process past experiences, as Freud emphasized, but also prepare us for future possibilities. The unconscious mind constantly processes vast amounts of information, including subtle cues and patterns that escape conscious awareness, and uses this processing to generate anticipatory scenarios for what might unfold. Think of a forest-dwelling animal that senses subtle changes in bird calls, air pressure, and other environmental cues before a storm arrives. The animal doesn't predict the storm in a mystical sense. It processes relevant information below the threshold of what we would call conscious reasoning. Similarly, your unconscious mind continually absorbs and processes information that your conscious attention misses. Subtle shifts in a relationship, barely noticeable patterns in your environment, slight changes in someone's behavior, or internal physical sensations that haven't yet registered as symptoms. From this perspective, many apparently prophetic dreams might represent your unconscious mind's processing of information that's already available but hasn't yet reached conscious awareness. Consider the case of a woman who dreamed her husband was killed in a car accident. 2 weeks later, he died in precisely the manner her dream depicted. Conventional perspectives might call this supernatural precognition, but Jung would suggest another possibility. Her unconscious might have detected subtle signs of her husband's increasing recklessness, changes in his driving habits, or environmental factors making an accident more likely. Information available, but not consciously processed. This doesn't diminish the significance of such dreams or reduce them to simple probability calculations. The unconscious doesn't just predict mechanical outcomes, it engages with the meaning and emotional significance of potential futures. It communicates through symbols and images that speak to the whole person, not just the rational mind. Jung called this the transcendent function, the capacity of the unconscious to integrate information in ways that transcend the limitations of conscious reasoning, sometimes producing insights that appear miraculous from the perspective of ordinary awareness. But what about those cases where dreams seem to predict events that couldn't possibly be inferred from available information? What about dreams that accurately foretell completely unexpected events or occurrences involving people distant from the dreamer? This brings us to Jung's most radical hypothesis, that at its deepest levels, the unconscious might transcend not just the limitations of individual perception, but the ordinary boundaries of space and time themselves. This perspective doesn't require supernatural explanation, but suggests that consciousness itself might be more complex and extended than our conventional models allow. In our next section, we'll explore Jung's concept of the acausal connected principle and its implications for understanding prophetic dreams. But first, consider this question. Have you ever had an experience where your unconscious seemed to know something before your conscious mind could possibly have figured it out? How might this reflect the prospective function Jung described? Synchronicity, the acausal connecting principle. To fully understand Jung's perspective on prophetic dreams, we must explore his groundbreaking concept of synchronicity, what he termed an acausal connecting principle that links events by meaning rather than cause and effect. Conventional science explains events through causality. A causes B, B causes C, in a linear sequence across time. But Jung observed phenomena that couldn't be explained through this framework, meaningful coincidences and connections that seemed orchestrated by something beyond mechanical causation. A patient might dream of a scarab beetle, only to have an actual scarab fly into the therapy room the next day. A person might think of a long-lost friend moments before receiving their unexpected call. Or, most relevant to our discussion, someone might dream of an event before it occurs in physical reality. Jung proposed that alongside causality exists another organizing principle, synchronicity, which connects events not by cause and effect, but by meaning and significance. In this framework, events can be linked because they share meaning within what Jung called the unus mundus, or unified world, the underlying reality where psyche and matter are not separate, but aspects of the same whole. This concept parallels developments in quantum physics, where phenomena like quantum entanglement suggest that particles once connected remain in communication regardless of spatial separation. As physicist David Bohm, who developed the concept of implicate order, later put it, the universe may be an undivided whole with a deeper order, from which our perception of separate objects and linear time emerges. From this perspective, prophetic dreams might represent moments when consciousness accesses this deeper dimension where events are connected by meaning rather than sequential causality. The dreaming mind might momentarily transcend the limitations of individual identity and linear time, participating in what philosopher Henry Bergson called duration, the continuous flow of reality beyond our artificial divisions of past, present, and future. Think of reality as a vast tapestry. Ordinary consciousness looks at the tapestry through a tiny slit, seeing only a narrow strip at any moment, what we call the present. But the unconscious, especially at its collective depths, might sometimes glimpse larger patterns in the tapestry, including sections that haven't yet passed through the slit of conscious awareness. This doesn't mean the future is predetermined in a fatalistic sense. Rather, it suggests that potentials and probabilities exist in a field of possibilities, some of which may register in the unconscious before they manifest in physical reality, particularly when they carry strong emotional or archetypal significance. Jung documented numerous cases where dreams appeared to access information beyond what could be explained by personal knowledge or inference. A woman dreams of an accident happening to a loved one in a distant location. A man dreams of a natural disaster that subsequently occurs exactly as envisioned. A child dreams of a grandparent's death before any signs of illness were apparent. Rather than dismissing these accounts or relegating them to supernatural explanation, Jung proposed that they reveal something fundamental about the nature of consciousness itself, that at its deepest levels, it participates in a reality not bound by our conventional understanding of space and time. In our final section, we'll explore the ultimate revelation about prophetic dreams, how they challenge not just our understanding of dreams, but our entire conception of consciousness and reality. But first, consider this. If consciousness can sometimes transcend the boundaries of individual identity and linear time, what might this suggest about the true nature of mind and its relationship to the physical world? The ultimate revelation, a different kind of knowing. We've arrived at the most profound insight of Jung's approach to prophetic dreams, one that transforms our understanding not just of dreams, but of consciousness itself. The revelation is this: what we call prophetic dreams are not supernatural visions granted by mystical forces, nor are they simply lucky guesses or coincidences. They are glimpses into a different mode of knowing altogether, evidence that consciousness is not confined to the limitations we typically assume. Our conventional model of consciousness is based on separation, the individual mind processing information from its environment through sensory input, bound by the brain's physical limitations, operating within linear time and three-dimensional space. In this model, any knowledge of the future seems impossible, except through logical inference. But Jung's work suggests a radically different possibility, that alongside this individual, temporal consciousness exists another mode of awareness, one that experiences reality more directly, without the usual filters of space, time, and separate identity. This isn't a supernatural claim, but a psychological one. It suggests that what we call individual consciousness might be more accurately understood as a localized expression of a larger field of awareness, like a wave on the ocean, distinct in form but not separate from the water that constitutes it. From this perspective, prophetic dreams don't predict the future. They experience it from a different relationship to time. They don't violate causality. They operate according to different organizing principles altogether. They don't represent supernatural powers. They reveal natural capacities of consciousness we've largely forgotten or never developed. The unconscious doesn't know you'll die before you do, in the sense of making predictions. Rather, it exists in a relationship to time where distinctions between past, present, and future are more fluid than in ordinary consciousness. It experiences reality more directly, without the filtering mechanisms that create our sense of linear time. This understanding invites a profound shift in how we relate to dreams, intuitions, and the signals from our deeper consciousness. Rather than dismissing experiences that don't fit our conventional framework as imagination or coincidence, we might recognize them as glimpses into dimensions of reality our ordinary awareness can't access. Dreams with apparent precognitive elements invite us to expand our conception of what consciousness is and how it relates to the physical world. They suggest that the boundary between inner and outer reality might be more permeable than we assume, and that meaning might be as fundamental to the universe as matter and energy. As Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, we need a different language for different modes of understanding. What we need is a language of the psyche. The psyche is the place where mind and matter come together in the human being. This perspective doesn't replace scientific understanding, but complements it, suggesting that our conventional models of mind and reality might be useful, but incomplete, addressing certain dimensions of experience while missing others entirely. By taking dreams seriously as communications from deeper layers of consciousness, we open ourselves to wisdom that transcends the limitations of rational thinking alone. We recognize that the unconscious doesn't just process personal psychological material, but participates in aspects of reality beyond individual experience. The practical implications are profound. If dreams can sometimes access information beyond the boundaries of individual knowledge and linear time, they represent an invaluable source of guidance, not as fortune-telling, but as communications from a dimension of mind that processes reality differently than ordinary consciousness does. This doesn't mean we should become superstitious or abandon critical thinking. Not every vivid dream predicts the future, but it does suggest that we might benefit from developing a more nuanced relationship with our dreams, learning their language, distinguishing their different qualities, and recognizing when they offer insights that transcend our usual ways of knowing. As you reflect on tonight's exploration, consider how your own relationship with dreams might change if you approach them not just as recycled personal material or random neural firing, but as potential communications from a dimension of consciousness that experiences reality beyond the limitations of space, time, and individual identity. Remember Jung's core insight. Your unconscious doesn't predict the future through supernatural powers. It experiences reality differently than your conscious mind does, including a different relationship to what we call time. The wisdom it offers through dreams isn't fortune-telling, but a glimpse into a more complete understanding of reality itself. What might your dreams be trying to communicate that your conscious mind hasn't yet recognized? And how might your life change if you developed a deeper relationship with this different way of knowing?